Just getting...
Let the body relax.
Yeah. Let it relax, let it chill out. He's not good at that. Which I'm not good at.
No. You just love training.
Yeah. Taking time off is like, if I can like plan it, then fine. But if it's one of them ones where it's like something's happened, I need to take time off, I just can't.
Like injuries and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Would you struggle? Have you had any like major injuries or anything?
Major injuries, thankfully not for a while, but I did have one, like, it was the strangest thing. 2020 and 2021, I had basically the same injury, but on a different side.
Yeah.
So I basically had like tendon damage on my left, like quad in my hip. And then the following year, I had the exact same injury on the other side. And both of them took me out for like maybe 2 months, 3 months.
Yeah.
How did you get that?
The one in the left one, I was training at home, practicing kicks and stuff, and the next day it just started to feel a bit painful. And then over the days went on, it just got more and more painful to the point where my leg was too weak to even lift covers off the bed or anything, like waking up in the morning. So I don't even know how that one happened. Maybe it was just like a wear and tear thing.
Yeah.
But then the following year, 2021, that one happened in wrestling.
Okay, yeah.
I was wrestling, shot in, it was at an awkward angle, all of his weight went down and this leg was stretched out and I just felt something go straight away.
Yeah.
That one was out for 3 months. But luckily, I'd kind of gotten used to the year before that, so it was a bit easier.
Wrestling will be the death of you, man.
It will. Wrestling, they always say it's the hardest. It's true, for real, it's true.
You look like you got a good wrestling frame, though.
It's demanding, isn't it?
Very
demanding.
Very. Now I do, but before I used to be quite skinny. I was a skinny guy before. And I remember going to my first like proper wrestling session and then just getting smoked. Yeah. Completely smoked. And then since then I was like, okay, I got to wrestle every single week if I want to do this. But
you don't realise the cardio in wrestling either. Like, it's if you're not that good at it, it feels like you're getting suffocated.
100%.
That's how it feels like.
100%. Because it's like, even in like jiu-jitsu, boxing, kickboxing, you can find those kind of pockets to rest. But when you're wrestling, you don't have any chance. You just have to just suck it up and keep going and hope that your conditioning gets better in the process.
Now, wrestling is a hard one, man. Even when you go, like, I went to a wrestling session on Sunday. I nearly pulled my hamstring. Yeah. And I was just like, that was just an odd off wrestling session. And I was like, I'm coming out with battered here. My back was all. I was walking around.
It's very demanding. Do you do it every week? Every week wrestling? How many times a week?
Wrestling, Monday is our wrestling sessions at GB Top Team. We wrestle every Monday morning, and it's purposefully on Monday because our coaches want us to do the hardest session of the week to be wrestling. And if they put it, of course, at the end of the week, everyone's going to be tired. So put it on a Monday morning. We do our warm-ups for like 15 minutes, drill for like 20 minutes, half an hour. And then it's just straight like 50 minutes of just wrestling non-stop, back to back. We do that once a week, and then we have drilling sessions as well. But Monday morning is always the toughest one.
Yeah, get it out of the way, man. Get it out of the way. Is that what you're doing full time throughout the whole weeks?
Yeah,
just training.
Training constantly. No, I'm lucky enough to have some good like sponsors and people close to me who are all like working together to try and basically chase the dream, really.
Yeah, that's what you need though, man. It takes a team to get there, doesn't
it? It does. I used to be the kind of person who's like try and do everything myself, but realistically, you gotta have people that you're close with that you can trust to kind of build yourself up together, really.
Yeah, that's wicked, man. We'll get into it anyway. People, welcome to another episode of The Curious Fijian. I'm your host, Fijian.
I'm the co-host, Rain.
And we got Shaun Fraser with us today, man. I've been looking at the resume. I've been doing the studying on some of your fights and that. And you're an animal. You're a bit of an animal, man. To put it nicely, anyway. I suppose that's the best compliment when you're a fighter, anyway.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Obviously, we just talked to you. We'll go through your journey a little bit. We'll talk about what you got coming up. Obviously, signed to Cage Warriors now. Well, I know the last fight fell through, didn't it? You were meant to make your debut in London. That one fell through. But what was sort of life like growing up? Have you always been athletic? Have you always been sporty? What was life like for you growing up?
Growing up, I'd always been into sports. I feel like I'd always wanted to have something to do with sports. But Fighting has always been something that I've been into. So it was my dad that got me into it, and he was a fighter long before I was born. He was fighting for a very long time, and then by the time I was born, he just started trying to teach me straight away. And then I think I was like 9 when I decided I wanted to fight. And then 15, I started to actually get into it like properly. But up until then, it was just training. But prior to that, it'd been like a basketball, rugby, college, school, you know, just usual sports stuff. So, but I don't think I've always been like crazy athletic, because I have like growing up, I was like the skinny guy, couldn't jump very high, wasn't that strong. I had cardio to me, but a lot of it had to be built over a long time.
Yeah, you've built all the attributes.
Yeah.
It must feel a bit better coming like that, though, isn't it?
Yeah, because I always look back at photos of myself. I've got one where I'm like on the beach when I was maybe, I don't know, 15 or something, 16. And I see some like 16-year-olds today. Like there was this one guy when I was in college, he was 16 years old, but he looked like a 32-year-old man, like a rugby player, 6'4", dreadlocks. And I was like, to have those kind of natural gifts would be great, but having to have to build it up yourself is just that much more satisfying.
Yeah, because even looking at you now, like I'd think you would have always been stocky, quite big,
wide.
Wide. Yeah.
No, I used to be quite skinny. I had wide shoulders, but there was like no meat to them.
Yeah,
it was just I had kind of like a weird frame.
You had the frame, but it wasn't. There was just nothing. It hadn't been built up yet.
Yeah, I had to grow into it myself. I spent quite like, I'd say maybe 3 years really dedicated on trying to put on muscle, because I was like, I knew I wanted to fight, but I knew that if I wanted to do this, I couldn't just be like, because obviously people have that like kind of skinny frame, but I knew I had to be stronger, so I had to do something about it.
Yeah. Well, because of the weight categories.
Yeah. And partially as well, when I was younger, obviously I'd ask my dad, like, what kind of weight class do you think I'd be in? And he'd say, like, don't know, we have to wait and see how you kind of grow and you'll kind of fill into your own weight class as time goes on. For a while, I thought it was going to be lightweight. And then I went to welterweight for my amateur career.
Yeah.
And I kind of had it in my head that, okay, I'm just going to stay at welterweight. So then that's kind of when I started to be like, all right, I'm just going to try and fill out, try and get bigger and stronger to try and fit into the welterweight frame, because there's some big boys at welterweight.
Yeah, there's big boys in welterweight, yeah.
But then now it's come full circle and going back down to lightweight.
Yeah. Was your first pro fight at lightweight?
No, welterweight
as well.
It was meant to be at lightweight, but couldn't find anyone at lightweight. So I just said, I want to get in there anyway, so let's just do it at welterweight.
You take any fight.
What was the first martial art you got into?
There wasn't one specific one.
Or you just always trained, dabbled at everything?
Yeah, it was thanks to my dad. It was, he mixed things up in his training. Like I had a very different start. His start was kind of like rough area, needs to protect himself. So he got into martial arts and he just became obsessed with it, started fighting all over the world and things like that.
What did he do? Fighting just MMA as well?
Kind of. He was like mixed martial arts before it was a thing. If MMA was a thing back then, that's all he would have done.
Okay, yeah.
But he was like boxing, judo tournaments and jiu-jitsu. So far back that jiu-jitsu tournaments back then were more like karate ones now, where they're like striking each other and things like that. But then when I was born, he started teaching me everything that he learned. So I had a bit of that like striking and grappling, and then he kind of pushed me to figure it out my own way and put it together my own way as well.
Yeah.
So I didn't have too much of a base, but I did start off with a preference for striking for sure, which then turned into grappling. And now it's kind of mixed up.
Yeah, because I was going to say, watching your fights, you do have a mixed style. Like when people shoot on you and stuff, you look like you can wrestle, you look like you can strike, you can sort of do a bit of everything. You just look like a natural martial artist.
What do you prefer? Do you prefer striking? Is that your...
Now, I don't have a preference. I strike a lot in like sparring rounds, but then I will shoot a takedown. And it's not just for the sake of mixing things up. It'll be like, because I love to grapple and I love to like figure people out as a striker and as a grappler and in the clinch. it just depends on what the situation brings, really.
You're adaptable.
I try and adapt as best I can. But at the moment, no, I don't have a preference. Before, it changed a lot. It was striking for a long time, and then I basically only grappled for like a couple of years. But now again, it's just mixing things up, trying to be adaptable as best I can.
What sort of age was you when you sort of was like, do you know what, this is what I'm going to do, so now I'll start moulding my body into a certain way? Like, what age was you then?
Like I say, I think it was when I was 9, I started to think to myself, I want to be a fighter. But then, of course, other things like school and people asking like
how
GCSEs.
did you deal with like the social friends going out, staying disciplined?
Well, I always kept to myself throughout school. It was like I didn't partake in any like drinking. Even back then in like year 7 onwards, it was like all of my friends were like going out, drinking. Some of them started to like smoke around that age as well. Eating bad and things like that. And I still ate, like eating bad was probably the worst thing I did throughout my school years. But I just knew I just wanted to be a fighter, and I knew I wanted to try and become a complete martial artist. And that comes with not doing certain things. I just tried to keep myself to myself, and it kind of, some people would say it's like a sacrifice. They sacrifice those good times. But I think because I was molded from young to try and live that life, it didn't feel like a sacrifice. Like even now, some of my friends will say, do you want to go out? And I'll be like, it just doesn't interest me.
Yeah.
Doesn't interest me. And it was the same back then. There was a few moments of weakness where I did dabble in a little bit, go out from time to time. But now it's just like, I've always tried to keep that discipline as best I can.
I suppose it's a full-time job as well.
Yeah.
Really, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
And probably the path's clear for you now, so you know to just stay on it.
Yeah. It's something I've always wanted to do. And everything from a very young age, all through my life, I've always tried to make sure things revolved around training and fighting. Like, I went to a bunch of interviews for my first job. A bunch of them were like, yeah, we want to take you on, these are the dates. And I just turned them down because I'm like, no, I've got to train those days. I'm not going to take that job. So it's been like very tricky times, but you just got to do it, or you know it's going to be worth it.
You've been all in for a long time, basically.
Yeah.
Not sort of like half and half. It's sort of always been fighting or nothing for you.
Yeah, and I've tried to have things going on the side around fighting, but as soon as something comes in the way of training and discipline and things like that, I try and get rid of it.
Yeah. Was you competing when you were younger?
Sort of. So I first got into like, I wasn't competing in like proper competitions, but when I was younger, because I kind of grew up training, I thought I knew what I had to do, and I thought I knew how everything was run. So I was just trying to find fights from when I was 15, and I had quite a few, but none of them were like actual fights. It was like people would because back then, I say back then, MMA was very young and it was a very new thing. And when I said to people I do MMA, they didn't know what it was. But then when I say like cage fighting, they were like, oh, okay, I know what that is. And I just remember having scraps in like gyms. People would put up like gazebos with like fake octagons out in the middle of a field, and we just throw hands there and things like that. That's what I started off with. And some of them were crazy. Like, lucky enough, because I had to tell them I was 18. I was like 15 at the time.
Yeah.
So I was fighting like 26-year-olds that were like really small, probably like in today's weight classes, they'd be like bantamweights or something, because I was small at that age as well. But that's kind of what I started with. And then when I was like 20, 21, I was like, okay, no, I have to do this properly. I have to like sort this out. So I started in like jiu-jitsu. I had like one competition. Boxing and kickboxing, I had a couple. So I don't really have that kind of big background like most people do.
See, I thought you, just cause from the age you sort of started at, I thought you would have had like 50 amateur fights, like boxing, maybe a few in kickboxing, something like that. But you didn't.
No. I had like 13 or 14 random fights that just happened to be in MMA gloves.
Yeah.
Is what I'd say them. What I'd call them. And then when I was like 20, just before I turned 21, is when I started in like proper organized competitions. Sometimes I wish I had done like the competitions from when I was younger, but I feel like doing it the way I did is not something I'd ever recommend, but I feel like it gave me a bit of like an edge, kind of.
I was gonna say, do you feel like you took like less impact of your life from not having many fights?
Yeah, I think
You've had
so.
a lot of training experience.
Yeah, for sure. Because I'd love to have the accomplishments. I remember saying to my dad quite a few times, like, I want to have like an amateur kickboxing belt. I want to have like different medals in jiu-jitsu and box and things like that. But it kind of shifted quite a lot, and I'm glad I didn't go that way, because I see a lot of people who compete as teenagers, even when you're into like your early 20s and things like that, you think like, oh, I can't get hurt, like I'm invincible, I just go for it and things like that. But you do take a lot of damage, and I'm glad that I didn't go down that route, because now I feel like at 26, I feel like I have a lot more freshness than a lot of people who have been fighting now for like 10 years and have been in wars in the gym, wars in fights and things like that.
But obviously you fought on Cage Warriors Academy as well, though, which is that's a big platform to be fighting on. Obviously that was amateur, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So what was it like when you first had your first amateur fight?
My first amateur fight, it was like 2.5 years before I started in Cage Warriors Academy, because of the whole like COVID and things like that and the lockdown. My first amateur MMA fight was, I thought I was going to be more nervous than I actually was. But at that point, I had been training for so long, I just kind of had it in my head that it's like, okay, I'm ready. Like I'm finally here and it's finally time to get going. I was just excited. And then by the time it came to my first academy fight, I felt very calm, like surprisingly calm. Even with 2.5 years off, I felt like I was just ready to keep it going, keep the ball rolling, and excited to be on such a great show as an amateur as well.
What was that period off like for you? Obviously, you said you got injured in that time, the COVID time, so probably not being able to train as much. What was that sort of period of your life like?
It was, for me, COVID was a fairly fun period during the lockdown itself, because even though I couldn't go train with my team and things like that, I was still training at home. So it was, and I was like PTing, working in gyms and things like that before them. So now it was just wake up, train, eat, go to sleep, and that was it. So I feel like I made a lot of improvements there. But then in 2021, I was meant to come back. One of those injuries actually pulled me out of a fight, which was meant to be my pro debut back then. The injury times were a bit of a struggle, but during injuries, I take it as time to try and reflect, look over my training, try and make improvements as best I can while I'm not training.
Yeah. So you look at it like a proper, like you're quite stoic. You're quite like a
very
proper
stoic. That's what I was going to say. You understand. You understand a lot, and you understand yourself.
Yeah. I always like to I'm always trying to learn from everyone, but over the years I've learned a lot of good lessons you can learn just looking back at yourself, things you've done, looking inwards, try and figure out how to become a better version of you instead of trying to copying what someone else is doing, even if they are really successful.
Having your own sort of style, and your own regime and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I used to be like fall into that category where I try and do what everyone else is doing because it was successful, not finding as much success with it. But then as soon as you start to kind of delve and do your own thing, trust yourself a lot more, then things work out a lot better that way.
Yeah. Have you been with a GB top team for the whole time you've been training?
Pretty much. It was my first proper MMA gym that I was with was Titan, which is where our head coach at GB, Brad Pickett, used to train.
Oh, is that your head coach?
Yeah. That's where he used to train and where he fought out of a lot as well. So I've met him there when I was like 17 or 18, I think I was. And I left Titan because I wanted to like learn different. Like I wanted to go to like a Muay Thai gym, a boxing gym. I wanted to build up a lot more knowledge, and then I kind of eventually I found another gym called Urban Kings, which unfortunately is closed down now, but it was an amazing gym. And I just so happened to bump into Brad there, and he was like, "Oh, I've started my own team, GB Top Team," and then I think that was in end of 2018, and then just been with him ever since.
Yeah.
Before the actual facility opened in Morden, we were like jumping around from gym to gym, training as a team. Now we have this big facility with like mats, a cage, saunas, and all that stuff. So
yeah, it's like a proper. Sort of reminds me of like, you know, like the American Top Team and like them sort of how their gyms are out there where everything's sort of in-house.
Yeah.
You've got it all in the gym. You don't really need to go and get a gym membership at JD to do your weights and stuff like that. Everything's in the gym, and this is where you're going to be like most of the day pretty much.
Yeah, it's good. It's such a great feeling to just go there and know you have everything there, because I've been in the situation where it's like I go to this gym for that, then I got to travel like an hour to go over here for this. But now having everything under one roof is amazing. And then you got like all your teammates, your friends.
Yeah.
We've got like a little lounge area where we just sit and we just chat rubbish for like an hour between training sessions. It's good. It's a nice little spot.
Is Nathaniel Wood in GB Top Team?
Yeah.
He's in GB. What's it like training with him?
Good. It's he and I used to spar quite a bit. We were never like main partners with each other because of the big size difference.
Yeah.
Especially like I used to walk around at like 85. Now I'm walking around at like 79, 80. And back then he was a bantamweight.
Now are you walking around 79?
Yeah. Yeah.
Fucking hell, you look much bigger than that. You look like 90. 90 something.
I thought he was going to say 90 as well.
I'm like, yo. Oh, man.
No, I mean,
It's your shoulders. I think because your shoulder width's so broad, you put your back in your shoulders. But that's probably from wrestling and grappling, and
I tell you what, at the gym with a lot of my close friends, I've had like 3 years of just constant fat jokes now.
Yeah.
Because they're all like, everyone, I can be kind of stubborn. I was convinced that I was staying at welterweight, so I kept my weight at 85. Everyone was saying to me, no, you're just a fat lightweight. Like all my friends would tell me that. Now I can kind of understand and see it, but even now that I'm bringing my weight down, it's like the fat jokes will never end. They'll never end.
You've been labelled as that.
Yeah,
now, isn't it?
yeah, that's my thing now.
do you prefer coming down the weight though?
Yeah,
Do you feel like lighter? Do you feel a lot more loose?
Yeah, there was a bit of an adjustment period because being heavier, I kind of tailored my style around, like I got kind of flat-footed a little bit, but I felt fine because I was like carrying more power in the grappling situations. I was feeling stronger and things like that. But now, I definitely prefer it now because I just feel so much faster. I feel a lot sharper, and I feel like I can keep the pace a lot more being at a lower weight. Like my fitness just feels so much better now.
Do you carry the power down with you as well? Do you feel a lot more like powerful compared to some of the other lightweights?
Yeah. I don't feel like my shots thud as much as they did before, but because they're quicker, I still feel like I've made up for it in terms of the speed. Like when I land my shots, they still do damage type thing.
So GB Top Team, they've got a good little team down there then, man. Like, obviously, Brad Pickett used to be in the UFC. Nathaniel Wood's in the UFC. So that's a good, like, stable of people.
Yeah.
Training out of there.
There's, like, everyone from, like, the highest levels of MMA to people making their amateur debut. The level there is just, it's perfect.
That's what you need to be around, man.
Yeah, it's perfect because I remember when I first started training with Brad when he was like first making GB Top Team, we'd go to we'd have our training sessions and sometimes there'll be maybe like 4 or 5 people. And back then it was a lot of lighter guys, so I would be one of the heaviest. But coming to now where it's like we got flyweights, bantamweights, heavyweights and light heavyweights, amateurs, UFC fighters, it's just perfect. You got everything you need under one roof in terms of like facilities and training partners.
Yeah, I'd just like to take this time to shout out our sponsors at Prime MMA. If you're looking to enhance your MMA skills and learn by one of the best coaches around, head over to Prime MMA now. It's as easy as clicking the link in their bio, selecting your class, selecting your purchase type, putting your email in, and then purchasing. With brilliant MMA and boxing fighters coming out of Prime, it's really the best time to start your MMA journey now. Head over to Prime MMA and let your mixed martial arts journey begin.
What do you do for rest and recovery?
Rest and recovery, I get a lot of stick for this as well with my team, because it's like they call me fat, they say I don't train enough. But I kind of take it on the chin, because it's like, it's fine. It's like, it's just your boys just joking and things like that.
Camaraderie, isn't
yeah.
it? Right.
But for rest and recovery, I take my recovery a lot more serious now than I did before. Before it was just a lot of volume. If I took an injury, I just trained through it. But now it's like, if I'm feeling tired and I should recover, then I might try and push out like another session before I take a recovery, just to make sure I've got everything out of the week as I could. But my recovery is very simple. It's just I make sure I sleep enough. I make sure I'm eating enough protein and enough nutrients to recover. I would like to do more kind of like cold therapy and things like that, because I was into like ice baths and I feel like it did help. But for me, my recovery is fairly simple. I try and rest maybe 2 days a week. I'll have a full rest where it's no intense training. One of those days I'll just be like practicing very lightly, barely get a sweat on, just working on like the weaknesses, trying to study fighters and learn. But my recovery is fairly simple. I just make sure I sleep enough, pretty much.
Yeah.
Stretch as well, stretching a lot. I make sure I stretch all the time, which is something I don't see from a lot of my teammates.
What is it? Yeah, because stretching, like, I suppose you want to be quite flexible, especially if it's like a ground exchange and stuff. I suppose flexibility can stop a lot of injuries as well, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. Because I've had it in situations in jiu-jitsu where people get like banana split, where they just make you do the splits until you tap. But having the flexibility there, I can just kind of chill there for a minute and just maneuver my way out of it. Whereas it's kind of like a bit of a trade-off, because I'm lucky enough to have my dad who's been through like the experiences of fighting and training for years and things, so I can always ask him for advice. And he'd say to me a lot of the time, you do want to be flexible, but being too flexible can come with its disadvantages as well. One of the things is like being kind of stiff can help you with having more power in like your kicks and things like that. But then you're more injury prone to like grappling situations. So another thing is trying to find my own balance with training and flexibility and stuff like that.
Yeah, because if you look at Pereira, like, he's stiff.
Yeah.
And he can thump.
Yeah.
Like, he looks like he's so stiff that if he hits you in one of them, like, you're going, man.
When you watch his like shadow boxing and things like that, his like shoulders barely move, but yeah, it works for him.
You know, like when he comes,
like a robot.
When he walks out, he does that thing and then he throws that stiff combination. But it's like, Rob, you get hit with one of them, man, you're going to sleep, man. Do you watch a lot of UFC and stuff like that? Are you a big martial arts fan?
Yeah, I take in everything. Like, I'll watch like UFC, different MMA organizations, and I'll watch like boxing, I'll watch jiu-jitsu matches. I'll even watch like taekwondo, karate things, try and see if I can pick up anything from there. Anything at all, like obvious things like watching UFC to like less obvious things to like some random guy doing Tai Chi in the park, or just I try and pick up as much as I can from anything.
Do you study a lot of it?
Yeah.
Do you watch fights to study like little moves and what they're doing?
I would say that I watch fights. I don't watch many fights as a fan.
Yeah.
Like I would, a lot of the time when I'm with my team, they're like, "Oh, did you watch this fight at the weekend?" I'll be like, "I ain't got a clue who that is."
Yeah.
You just like breaking it down and finding the art.
If I see someone that does something that I'm like, okay, I need to learn, then I'll just watch them for like an hour, maybe like one fight of theirs, one sequence. I'll watch it for like half an hour, try and break down and understand everything they're doing, all the little details behind it. But I watch it a lot less as a fan, more so to try and learn.
Yeah, just you don't want to waste the time. Yeah. Obviously you did when we first was messaging, you was talking to me about obviously you went through a period where you were homeless and stuff like that. What was that point in your life like?
Well, it wasn't homeless. It was more so when I was with Titan and I was training there, I think it was just before I turned 18. So I'll say 18 when I started at Titan. And I was there for a good couple years. And I had a part-time job. I was also at college. And all of my income was going to training. And I was only working weekends, so I wasn't earning that much. So what would happen was I'd go to training and I'd go there in the morning and I'd want to do the evening sessions, but I wouldn't have enough to be able to make the trip home, chill, and then make the trip back. Like, I just didn't have enough to do that and eat as much as I needed to eat. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I need to make a decision here. Do I want to go home, be comfortable, and then maybe train at home or something? Or do I want to go and learn? And I was like, okay, I need to go and learn. I need to make the sacrifice and just go and do it. So what I would do is I'd go to Titan in the morning, finish up training. And to me back then, everything was serious. Like I didn't chill out. I didn't try and make friends or anything. I was just, training's done. Okay, I'm out. But I couldn't afford to go home and back. So I didn't really have anywhere to go. So I finished training, and near Titan, there was like this big bridge and like a bunch of like roads that go onto like the motorway and things like that. There was like a little area where I'd see it was kind of like quite a big homeless area as well, I think. Yeah. I'd find like a little safe spot, put on my bag, grab a sandwich, have something to eat, and I'd just sleep there throughout the day, go back to training, and then I could go home after that.
Home, yeah. So just all in, man.
You were serious.
Yeah.
Serious guy. That's why you are where you are, though.
Yeah, it was. I had to do what I had to do. It was like, even back then, being 18 years old, I was like, this is all I want to do. I want to give it everything I have. I want to make sure there's no like doubts or questions by the time I finish fighting to be like, did I give it enough? So I'd be like, if that's what I got to do, that's what I got to do. I just got to suck it up and deal with it. I'll go sleep under the bridge, or if I had enough charge on my phone, then I'd sit at like, there was a bus stop out near the gym. I'd sit there for like 6-7 hours just watching fights, writing things on my notes until I start to see some people that were going into the gym be like, cool, time to go train again. And then I train and then go home. And then
it's crazy though, because not a lot of people at 18 really know what they want to do.
I think it does come down to my dad putting me into that life. So I'm always thankful for him for putting me into it. And I do get asked quite a bit, like, do you sometimes wish that didn't happen so you didn't have to go through those kind of things? Like during winter time, sleeping under the bridge or just sitting somewhere for like 6 hours waiting. And I'll be like, not really, because even back then I knew how satisfying it would be to look back and be like, oh, I did that and I made it to where I am now. And just the fact of like working hard to try and get to where I want to go, I'm very, very satisfied with it. Very happy with it.
Yeah, that made you the man who you are today, man. That's one thing that will always live with you. That's the thing. Like you said, like you put in that hard work and that graft, and that will live with you for the rest of your life. That's the difference.
And you know, you put 100, like
a lot of people, 18.
Yeah, a lot of people will do things to just do it and just like, you know, if it works out, it works out. But you gave 1,000%. Like you, sleeping under the bridge, you gave 1,000%. Yeah, there's not even 100%. So you've put in, and I suppose that's why you're reaping the benefits now with like where you're at. Obviously, signed for Cage Warriors, which is like a massive. It's the best step up you can have, really, to start your career.
But it's also a journey as well, where a lot of people think everything should happen overnight or happen within a year. Like this has been a journey for you. How old are you now? You say you're 26, and you were doing this from you were 18. So yeah, that's plus over 10 years. So that's what it shows.
Yeah, it's true. It's like sometimes going back to before, it's like I do wish I had the experience of having competed from when I was young, but I feel like going through that kind of tough period where it's not easy, and you have all the reason to be like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore, can't be bothered. But then saying like, no, I'm going to keep doing this no matter what, I definitely prefer it that way.
You experienced, and you probably experienced the same psychological benefits.
Yeah.
You might not have been competing, but you were going through hardship yourself.
Yeah.
So for that, you got the mindset.
Yeah, there's always benefits to it. There's always a good side to everything.
Yeah, and it's a good lesson for the next generation coming up, because not everything's easy.
100%.
Especially the generation we live in now. Everyone is soft scoop.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And I get some stuff from my teammates who are like, "Oh, are you coming to training tonight?" And like, "No, I'm gonna do my own thing, or I'm gonna rest and something like that." And they're like, "Oh, you don't train enough." I'm like, "Buddy, you don't know. You don't know training. You don't know training yet." And they're like, some of them are like 18, 19 years old as well. And I'm like,
want to prove a point, show up. Yeah.
But it's fine. Like everyone's on their own journey. Everyone needs to do what's right for them. And
I think that's the main thing. Like you said, everyone's on their own journey, and everyone needs to figure out who they are.
Yeah.
Like you said, you can copy people to a certain point, but then at the point it stops working because you are your own man, and you have to find out who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I do want to go to your pro debut as well. FC, was it 34? FCC 34.
Yeah.
Obviously, like you said, it was at welterweight, this fight. He was a good fighter as well. Was he Taekwondo champ?
He was Sambo champion, yeah, 3-time, and like judo black belt, and
yeah, like serious. He was a serious customer, man. He was a serious customer. Obviously, you dealt with a bit of adversity going through the fight. Was it like your toughest fight?
Yeah.
Before that, did you have any self doubts coming into this fight?
Never.
Or you just felt good?
No, that one was a bit different because I never feel any doubts. I'm always like, I always keep myself confident. I always try and like talk to myself and build myself up for fights. But that one, it did feel a little bit different. I never really feel, I wouldn't say, it would be nerves, but not nerves in the way like some people talk about, like where they're like really like worried and panicking until they start to walk out and they start to feel fine. I'm always very quiet and calm backstage before I go out, even when I'm walking out. But this one, it felt like there was something else there. But I feel like it was just because it's like, okay, I've waited to be a pro for so long now, and it's finally here. It's kind of that kind of nerves. And I feel like in the first round, it kind of froze me a little bit. But then as soon as I started get going, I was like, okay, I'm happy. This is kind of where I want to be now.
Yeah, I'm home.
Yeah,
flow state.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like it's just like you needed that round to just like no. And the pro debut's a big thing because it's that like amateurs you can sort of lose. You can lose. There's not you don't want to, but there's not the pressure of like right, if you lose, it's kind of over. But with the way society's going now, because it's sort of creeping into the UFC a little bit, that boxing mentality of if you're not 10-0 or 10-1 or something, you it's going to be a hard path to sort of make it. So it is a big thing going into a pro debut.
Yeah. And for the fight, it was as well, like the opponent, it was a lot of my teammates were like, taking a pro debut like that is a tough thing. Like some of the people I was speaking to, they were like, if that name came across and I was looking at what kind of fighter it was, it's like too risky for a first fight. But I never think of it that way. Before, I always wanted to have all the achievements, like champion of like Sambo champion, judo black belt, things like that. But my mind has kind of shifted. It's like, I don't want to have all that stuff anymore, but I want to beat the people that do have it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I wasn't Sambo champion when I was on my rise, but I beat the Sambo champion. I wasn't kickboxing champion, but I beat the kickboxing champion.
Yeah, now you are the champion. So, no, you're the Sambo champion. Because you were taking him down though as well. You were taking him down. I think he threw a shot and you ducked under it, got his back and took him, like cable, tied him and grabbed him straight down. And it was like this is a legit guy.
Yeah. It was satisfying. It was like some of my friends were telling me about, because they were asking me who the opponent was. I was breaking down like his accolades and things like that. And then when I'd get like the takedown and things like that, they would say like, oh, you took the 3-time Sambo champion down. It's like, it was good, but it was a very, very tough fight. And the other thing as well is I was dieting down to make lightweight. leading up to that fight.
Yeah.
And it was only a couple weeks out that we found out it was going to be at welterweight. So I had to kind of I didn't try and put on any weight, but I was just sticking with where I was. So come fight week, I was like 82 kilos. I was like light for a welterweight.
Yeah.
And my coach that cornered me, Barry Healy, who's a boxing coach, he said to me afterwards, he was like, I didn't say anything to you when we walked out to the cage because obviously you need to be focused. But he was like, when I saw the other guy standing there, he was like, that guy's massive. There's a size difference here. But I don't think about that kind of stuff. It's like, this is who I'm fighting. This is who I'm fighting. That's it.
Yeah, you don't
Just
really
believe in your ability.
Yeah.
Do you make that decision, or do you speak with your coaches, or is it sort of on you at the end of the day?
No, I try and make as much on me as I can because I'm fortunate enough to have some amazing coaches like Brad Pickett, Ash Grimshaw, Barry Healy, even like one of the other gyms that I was with for a while that I've gone back to now, the Knowlesy Academy, like Christian Knowles and things like that. Yeah. I'm fortunate enough to have great coaches and amazing teammates around me who we all work together to build each other up. But I've always said, like, I never want to rely on anyone, especially in terms of like making myself feel good for a fight. So I always try and like speak to myself, build myself up and be like, okay, this is the fight, this is the situation, this is what's going to happen. That's it. Just keep it as simple as I can. And I'm never too worried about the win or the loss because for me, it's just about the fight. That's all that matters to me. It's just about the fight. That's all I want to do.
Yeah, it's a good mindset to have though, because then it doesn't. I suppose if you're going to be champion, you're going to have to beat everyone anyway.
Yeah,
there's going to be no sort of style you can hide from, and I'm guessing the goal for you is UFC. What's that sort of like trajectory? Like, how quick do you want to get there? Do you want to take your time with fights? How many fights would you like to have a year?
In my first year competing properly, I had like in total like 15 matches across like different martial arts. I think only 2 of them were MMA, but then there was a bunch of others as well. And I kind of had it in my mind that that's the kind of activity I need to have. But then when it came to like the reality of it, it's like as an amateur, you're not going to have that many fights a year, and as a pro, even less. So I kind of pressured myself into having lots of fights, and I always set the bar really high. But I want to try and be as active as I can. Like, I want to try and have 4 fights this year. And a year ago, to me, 4 fights would have been like not a lot. But now it's kind of like, I always knew I wanted to be a fighter, but understanding the whole like business behind it and the industry itself is like, okay, there's a lot that goes into having a fight. It's not just the fight itself. So I want to have 4 fights this year, pushing for 5 if I can. And I used to put a time frame on everything. I'm not trying to do that so much anymore. It has just too much stress to it. I'm just trying to enjoy the journey now. But first things first, I want to try and take the Cage Warriors belt, lightweight belt, maybe welterweight belt as well. We'll see. It might be a bit greedy.
Double champ, come on.
But then we'll just see what happens after that. It's like a lot can change in a year. Is one thing that I've noticed. A lot can change in a year. So we'll get these 4-5 fights done and see what opportunities come after that.
I think that's a perfect amount as well, especially because you don't see many people have that many fights. But the people who have sort of like exploded to stardom, the Israel Adesanya's, the Conor McGregor's, everyone says like the path was easy, but realistically they were winning often and fighting often.
Yeah.
And the more you win and fight, you're in people's minds all the time.
Yeah.
So every time there's because a cage, they're only putting an event on every. I suppose they do some in chunks, but it's normally like every few months. And if you're just in people's faces, winning, everyone's like, well, who's this? This guy's smashing up the division. Like this guy's under the bridges and that, man. This guy's come to take my years. You know what I mean? Paved the way.
Yeah, you got to keep in the people's eyes. You got to keep, because one thing that people like at the top say a lot is like a lot of sports fans are very short-term memory.
Yeah.
So if you're not in there for a long time, then they'll kind of forget about you. And it's like the hardcore fans will keep like talking about you and things like that, asking when you're back. But the more casual fan base will kind of you'll have a big fight, it'll be great, and then they'll kind of forget and move on to the next. So you got to kind of keep in the public eye now.
Exactly. And obviously you won 2 belts for Cage Warriors Academy as well, didn't you? What was that like?
It was great. At the time, it kind of came on a lot quicker than I thought it would, because I had the first fight with them, and then my coach sent me the second fight with them, and then I looked at it and I was like, it's for a title, and he was like, yeah, you're gonna be fighting the champion, and I was like, oh, sick. I thought I was gonna need maybe like 2 or 3 more, but it just is what it was. But then when I saw it, I was like, the belt is extra. For me, getting into it is, I wanted to be the best fighter I can be for myself. And that means beating the best people you can beat. And personally, being the champion just means you get to fight the best every fight you have. So for me, it's kind of like a ticket, almost, to earn your way to fight the best every single time out. But winning the belt I thought I was going to be very excited for it, but it was kind of like, it was almost expected. Like my dad was like, he was happy for me, but it was just a normal fight.
Just another day.
It was just a normal fight. Afterwards, my dad was like, congratulations, you won the belt. Here's what you did wrong. We need to work on it. Yeah. It was like, cool, straight on to the next.
Yeah, no waiting around.
No, it was like we had to
make. You do that with
every
fight then? After you break down your fight, look what you could have improved on.
Yeah. I think back straight away as like, oh, why did I do that? Or I should have done that. If I did this, I could have gotten him out of there. So it's always trying to learn straight away. And it's always like my friends and family who tell me like, oh, it was such a great fight, it was a great performance. But I'm always disappointed afterwards, except for that last one that I had, the pro debut. I was very happy with that one, but then that's the one everyone was like, why are you happy? It was just a tough fight. Why are you happy with that one, but not all the other ones?
It's because you probably come through adversity to win it.
Yeah.
So it means a bit more, because you have to battle through something. Like, it wasn't just gifted to you.
That one had to be like really earned.
Yeah.
It was like, it was close. It was close.
What was his record in that going into it?
I think he was, at the time, 1-0 as a pro, and I think 6-2 as an amateur, or 5-2 as an amateur.
Yeah. But you had all the Sambo.
Yeah, and he had all that as well, yeah. But his 2 losses were his first 2 amateur fights, so the rest of it was just win streaks.
Yeah, he's on a win streak, yeah. Yeah, that's a mean guy to take on.
First time.
Yeah. But
go on.
It's when they sent that to me, I saw him, looked at his record, looked at his fights, and I was like, cool, this is the situation, let's break it down and let's try and get this done. And as it was a tough fight, but it was like, the first round didn't go how we wanted it to. It was started off extremely tough, and I had to deal with it and get through it. But the overall game plan went how it was meant to. It was like, we knew he was going to get tired towards the later rounds. We wanted to kind of be more in his face, push him backwards. Round 2 and 3, we kind of did that. So the game plan worked. We just had to take a bit of a detour at first.
Yeah. Would you say you're more of a 3-round fighter or a 5-round fighter?
I'd like to say 5, because throughout a lot of the time in training, like in the first few years, I always wanted to figure out a person and then kind of put pressure on them later on. So I'd always kind of ease into my rounds and break them down and figure them out. And then the later the fight goes, even throughout my amateur ones, I watch it back, it's like the later the fight goes, the better I get. But then now we're kind of trying to shift that to not have a round 1 like the last fight, pretty much, to kind of have things we do at the start as well as throughout the fight. But I'm really looking forward to having 5-round fights. I think I'll shine best in those.
Yeah, it's that time, innit, man? 5-round, like, it's a big time difference.
Yeah.
But obviously, you sound like you got the cardio and stuff like that for it anyway. Would you say you're more of a cardio fighter?
Yeah.
Cardio and pace.
Yeah. It's whenever I watch my fights back and going back to how I feel in the fights, I never feel completely like gassed or tired afterwards. I always like to try and be as efficient as I can in like techniques, the planning, and not rushing as well. I think that's a big thing, especially in grappling, is people tend to like to explode in and out of position. And I'll use that a lot as well, but it has to be at the right time. And the rest of the time, it has to be done patiently and intelligently. And I like to be as efficient as I can.
Yeah. What's it been like training with the Knowlesy Academy? Obviously, Christian Knowles, he's a really good striking coach. What's it been like tweaking things with him?
Good. It's been good. He's like... I love going down there and training with him because it's always a different look. You train in MMA for so long, and even though we're training everything, going to a gym where they only focus on one part of that it's always going to be a learning experience. And then when he's there, as well as the other coaches, and they're watching over sparring, they'll give you different pieces of advice that you wouldn't get in MMA. Because, of course, MMA, they're thinking about like clinches, submissions, takedowns, and stuff like that. They're a strict kickboxing and Muay Thai gym. They'll give you different things that they wouldn't really think about in an MMA gym. So it gives you a different outlook on thinking of it, a different way to grow. And it's always beneficial.
Yeah, it's a good gym as well, man. Obviously, John Haggerty's fighting out there. His brother, I'm sure, is fighting out there as well.
Yeah. He just had his fight. Yeah,
he won yesterday.
Yeah,
a good fight, knocked him out.
Yeah,
and
it was great.
Looked like a mini John in there. And all the comments, it was like he's the next general.
Yeah,
the next general.
Yeah, it was great to watch.
Do you do much training with them? Are they normally in there? I know they spend a lot.
Not so much anymore. I haven't seen them in a long time.
Yeah.
We used to do like a few rounds here and there back in like 2019 when I was there like consistently a lot. At the moment, I'm in and out every now and again because there's so much like training to do and have to split training up between different things now. I like to get down there as much as I can, but it's like once a week, once every other week to try and get that extra work in. But the rounds we did, it's like I always had the weight over him, but you wouldn't be able to tell with how hard he hits.
Yeah,
he hit hard.
He stings. He hits hard. He hits like... He honestly hits like a lightweight or a welterweight because of that speed, but he has that power behind it as well, and the technique as well.
He's so athletic. Like it's like he gets from one position to another like that. Like he uses his body as like a springboard.
Yeah,
almost.
He's explosive, and he's got an amazing skill set. It's brilliant. It's always fun watching him. I learn a lot studying him as well.
Yeah, the way he fights. Yeah, because he's technical, man.
Yeah, very technical.
Yeah. He's one of them dangerous ones where it's like he's very technical, but he's also got the physical attributes behind it.
Yeah, he's perfect for that. Oh, he wants to do the MMA fight as well.
Yeah,
I've been seeing him call for that. He wants that third belt, doesn't he?
Yeah, I've been seeing he's been training his like MMA here and there. I remember seeing him doing like a couple wrestling sessions when I was with him in like 2019. So he's been working behind the scenes of it.
Hopefully he goes in and does it, man. That'd
be good to see him do.
That'd be
because he's had an MMA fight before.
Has he?
Yeah, it was a very quick one. Like he knocked him out quick in the first round, but he's been in MMA before.
He's just game, isn't he? And he's got
just
the technique.
Yeah. He just loves a scrap.
Which is it's a hard person to go and beat, man.
And the benefit as well, he's used to them 4-ounce gloves.
Yeah.
So I mean, if he catches you, it's none nights.
Yeah,
that's it. That's all it takes.
100%.
Yeah, maybe he might be making a little UFC debut man, later down the line. Do you have any top tips for the next generation of MMA fighters coming up?
Yeah, I'd say one thing I'd say that helped me a lot is trust yourself and spend some time figuring out your way of doing things, because having your coaches and having the right coaches as well is another thing I'd say. Find the right coach for you, because even if you go with like the best coach in the world, if it's not a good fit coach and athlete wise, then you may not live up to your full potential. Which is why, again, I'm fortunate enough to have my dad, to have Brad, to have Ash, because it's like they're great fits for me. So finding the right coach for you is a very big thing in your career, but then also figuring out things for yourself, learning what you like, learning not just having other people tell you what your weaknesses are, actually sit down and figure it out for yourself. And yeah, trust yourself, develop your skills at your rate, at your pace. Don't rush as well, I think is a big thing, because if you're in it from young, then you want to get things done quickly. You just want to go and At least that's what I wanted to do. And then even if you're starting a bit later, you want to kind of rush and get in as quick as you can. Take your time, be patient with it, and look after your injuries as well. Look after your injuries. Don't try and train through the pain just because you feel like you have to.
Yeah.
That's like so many of them.
Yeah. I used to fall victim to it as well. I used to have a problem with like my... I used to have kind of a lot of problems with my knees. From doing all that training and not resting, my knees would start to hurt, and I'll be like, literally my thought process was, oh, I'm a fighter, I'm meant to have bad knees, I just get through it. But then as time went on, I was like, no, I need to make sure I'm healthy and then make sure I'm good to fight, because that's the health is the most important thing. You're not healthy, then you're just pulling yourself back.
And there's going to be a life after fighting as well.
Exactly.
It's like a lot of the guys down our jiu-jitsu gym, they all got broke up knees, and they're like, yeah, this is it. This is part of our life. And I'm like, no, this ain't. You know what I mean?
Exactly that. And it's like,
and they're not even like competing in that. This is like hobbyists.
Yeah,
and it's just like
as well.
they're just the worst.
The hobbyists are worse than some of the athletes. They're just
relax
themselves up, and they'll be like, yeah, it's just the life. But that's like when I watch GSP and Mighty Mouse. Obviously, GSP's retired. Mighty Mouse has been through everything. I listen to the way they talk about their training, and it's like GSP even says, my life is not about fighting. Fighting is just what I do, but there's other things I do as well. And it was on the Joe Rogan podcast where Joe was like, it's interesting for you to say that, being one who's considered the best ever, saying that fighting is not your whole life. And Demetrius Johnson, same thing. He'll say he doesn't put that much stress on himself. Like if he wants to go out and like drink and have a bit of bad food leading up to a fight, he'll do that. It's like fighting's not his whole life. It's very important to be dedicated to it, but there is a life outside of fighting and there is a life after fighting, and you can still live up to your full potential while living your life.
Yeah. Who's your favourite fighter to sort of study? Do you have a specific fighter you always watch and you always study and you sort of take a lot from them?
It changes a lot. I used to watch John Jones a lot to study the way he does certain things. But now I more so study him to not so much to see what he does that I can do, because he's a unique athlete in terms of like how long he is and how well he uses that. But that's more what I learned from him, how to use your body to its advantages. Before, I used to just look at everyone and think, okay, this is what they do, I can do it too. But it's not always like that. Some people are tall, some people are short, and you got to figure it out how to do it for yourself. But in terms of skill for skill, I like to watch, in MMA, I like to watch Volkanovski a lot.
Yeah.
I like to watch Izzy a lot for like feints and things like that. In boxing, Triple G is someone that I love watching to help with my boxing as well. But I've got a lot of people through different sports. Jiu-Jitsu, I like watching Gordon Ryan. His techniques, yes, but also the way he likes to set him up, because when I watch him, he doesn't do a lot of like crazy techniques that a lot of like some of the younger guys are like jumping, scissor takedowns and flying triangles and things like that. He doesn't do any of that crazy stuff. So I always try and think to myself, what is he doing differently that other people aren't doing? And I try and break it down that way. But there's a lot of people that I like to watch. A lot of people.
That video of Gordon Ryan and John Jones, like sort of taking, like rolling a little bit, but with the takedowns, he figures out as soon as he's rolling, he knows where to position his weight to sort of reverse the position. Like, as he's falling. Because John Jones had him a few times where it's like, that's a takedown, and then he gets there and he already knows that if he uses this leg as leverage, it's that.
That's someone they're a master at their craft.
Yeah.
Who truly understands it.
No, watching him is like a proper artist at work. He knows the positions, he knows the weight distributions, and he's never rushing and he's never panicked. He's always patient. It's always effortless for him.
It just looks like he slices through butter. He just breaks people down so easy.
Exactly that, and at the highest level as well.
Yeah.
At the highest level, always.
He said he does a lot of studying as well. With like not necessarily. Yeah, he said he trains every day. He was saying this on Joe. He trains every day, but he said one day will be like he's training, but he's sort of just watching film.
Yeah,
watching film. He said it's quite important to study as if you're like an NFL player or a football player like that, because they'll watch a lot of film. Yeah, and I suppose like not many people do that, do they? Really, unless they're fighting a specific person, they might watch film on that person, but just watching film throughout everything.
Yeah, I implement it a lot into what I do daily. And I'll have, like I say, my 2 rest days a week, where those 2 rest days, I'm not doing anything intense. I'm just letting the body recover. But I will always try and learn something on those days. One of those days, it will just be exactly that, strictly focus on studying. I'll write what I want to learn, try and find people who do it really well, pick up what I can, and then I'll just find other things a lot along the way that I want to learn, whether it's a certain fighting style, the way people talk, the way people train in like their physical training, like strength and all that. But I think it is very important to do. And like you say, not a lot of people do it, but it's been a key thing to help me improve.
Yeah. How do you think Volkanovski gets on with Topuria?
I think that would be I think normally it would be a very interesting fight, but with Volk coming off of a KO loss like that, I think that will play a big factor into it. Skill-wise, Volk has all the skills to win, but it's also you got to look at certain things behind the scenes, like has that KO affected him? Has his mindset changed at all because of the KO or before the KO or whatever? Ilya is coming in extremely confident in his skills, obviously going to be tailored towards beating Volk. And with as good as his boxing is, he come in as like a jiu-jitsu guy. So his grappling is, of course, going to be there as well. I think Volk will win, but it depends on if the Volk we know turns up, which I think he will, but you never know.
Yeah, because it's like when Kamaru Usman got knocked out by Leon Edwards, like the next fight, he looked majorly different.
Yeah.
Like he'd looked like he'd aged another 10 years.
Yeah.
Sort of, but I think it was just down to the knockout. Like I think he just come back way too soon. He probably should for a head kick. It's a big knockout, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of force going into like a punch.
Yeah.
Let alone a head kick.
Yeah, and getting put to sleep.
I think Teddy Atlas said he would rest people for a year after they got knocked out.
Yeah,
He'd make them not fight for a whole year.
Yeah,
because like you have to rest the brain.
I suppose a serious knockout like that, like if you're getting put to bed, maybe. But I suppose if they're probably getting scans and etc. Like
I know,
that.
but I don't. But how much is a scan showing to what you can take? Like what how much rattle the brain can take? I don't know if there's a scan.
I feel like you said though, it's like you said, it's what Volk turns up. It's who's going to be in his head. Is he going to be in his own head thinking about the kick, or is he just going to be like that was just unlucky?
Because I thought he took the fight soon. Like just considering all the things, like it was a short notice fight anyway. He got knocked out from a head kick, and then now he's all that emotion after he showed, and then now he's turning around to fight early part of this year. Like that's all happened within like 5 months.
Yeah, because he said he couldn't rest and that properly. That's why he took the fight, wasn't it? It was something to do, like he weren't feeling happy at home. He just wanted to fight. It's just like,
and that's never a good sign as well, because then you can start ignoring your health. It's like, oh, I just have to be in the gym. Of course, if you're sparring, you're taking more headshots and things like that after getting KO'd. And then a fight camp on top of that is, we just have to wait and see what kind of Volk turns up.
And you'd argue, like, maybe, because I'm sure he had to cut a mega amount of weight as well in that 11-day period. You think, well, if he didn't have to cut that weight, does that head kick knock him out on another day?
It's true. The weight cut does play a factor.
Like the weight cut plays, especially when you're sucking that much water out of your body like that quick, and you're not.
Could have been a different fight, but fair play, he took the fight.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. You had it there in your lap, and you took it.
Yeah, he took the risk.
Because the first one was close.
It was close.
What do you think to the first fight?
I watched the first fight back a couple times, and honestly, as a fight, you could give it either way. But then it's always a case of, I always look at it as a fight, not so much as like a sporting event. As a sporting event, it's like control time, and the damage, of course, plays a part into it as well. And this, who just seems like they're doing more. Because if two people are having a fairly even fight, but one of them is literally just pressing the other one to the cage, that person could win the fight, even if the other one maybe does a little bit more damage. as a fight, I'd say Volk would have won it, but as a sporting competition, then you can give it to Islam.
Yeah. What do you think? There's too much emphasis on the takedowns with scoring. Do you think they're scored too like they're looked at as too high? Because there's some people who will get like DDP versus Strickland.
That's
for
what they're
instance, the other day,
saying.
like he took Strickland down, but Strickland was up within a minute because obviously you got the Hamzat Usman one where all right he took his back for 4.5 minutes. Fair enough. Like you had your way with him. Do you know what I mean? But like if you're taking someone down and then they're getting straight back up and you're not really done nothing with it, like what how do you think it should be worth what it's worth?
I think people do put a lot of emphasis on those takedowns, and I think from the outside it's like if they get taken down and they're straight back up, whoever does more with it should be the one that gets like basically the points for it. It's like kind of like in Muay Thai, if someone throws a kick but that kick gets checked, whoever checked the kick scores more.
Yeah.
If someone gets taken down but they get straight back up, that shows that they're in control because they got taken down.
You can control it down.
But they couldn't get controlled. They got straight back up. And I think the get-ups aren't scored as much as the takedowns, but I don't know.
There's a bit of blurred lines, isn't there? With,
there's
grey areas. Yeah.
It's like with O'Malley versus Piotr Jan as well.
Yeah.
Similar thing. A lot of people were saying Jan should have won that fight, takedowns, control time, but then they were talking about like damage and things like that. It's a tricky one for sure.
And I suppose maybe people was going to score it different. Like different judges are going to, maybe some judges might like more damage, some judges might like more control. So there's no like universal way to score it, which there probably should be a universal way to score
what
it.
What was Rogan and Eddie saying the other day? That they should have more points to the end of the rounds, who show more dominance at the end of the rounds instead of the start of the rounds. Because if a guy's getting, say if you're bashing up the guy in like the start, but then the guy starts dominating you from the third to the fifth. Because realistically, if you had more rounds, he would probably put you out. But
I think they're more in favour of how you said it. They like looking at it as a fight.
Yeah.
So the guy who's on top at the end, raining down on their opponent, like if that's a street fight and you're fighting to the death, that person is going to win.
But then again, we could say if there was 10 rounds, it could go. It could go in cycles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It could go in cycles. Yeah. To be fair, it could never end.
No, but that's why. But it is a sporting event, I suppose. It's not a street fight, so you do have to score it as a
martial art.
Yeah, as a martial art. But they do that in Thai a lot. They score the last 2 rounds, or they used to. I'm not sure if they still do. I think they might do in one, but the last 2 rounds are worth more than the first 2 or first 3.
The first round's like feeling each other out, and then I think the third and fourth are your money rounds. That's where you want to get it.
Because Holloway says that as well. Is like he, especially before, he tend to lose, and Mayweather too in boxing. It's like they'll tend to lose the first like rounds, but then later on, the longer the fight goes, the better they get. So it comes down to the individual and their fighting style too. And because MMA is such a dynamic sport with so many skill sets, there's always going to be so many opinions. Like, one guy lands a bunch of takedowns, but he loses the fight. The wrestler's not going to be happy. Like, people who are watching that are big wrestlers, they're not going to be happy. But on the flip side, it could be the same thing. It's like, if they're getting the takedowns, then the striker's not going to be happy.
Yeah.
It's politics.
It's always going to be a thing.
What do you think the best skill set is for martial arts? Like, if you had to come in with one specific skill set, like, what do you think sort of takes all?
I'd say a lot of people would say boxing and wrestling. I'd say personally Muay Thai and wrestling. With jiu-jitsu as a defense.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
That's what I'd say. But me personally, I just love Muay Thai, so I might be a bit biased.
That Bo Nickel man, he'll be saying just rest.
Yeah. But wrestling for sure, knowing how to wrestle is crucial. Yeah. Whether you like to wrestle or not, having that in the back pocket to either take someone down or to understand how to get up from a takedown is always going to be beneficial. Because we see like, not so much now because everyone's so well-rounded, but before it was always the wrestlers that would dominate over like the specialists. Whether you're a jiu-jitsu guy or a boxer, the wrestler would just smash them and just crush them. Whoever's a better wrestler would win. So I think that's always going to be one of the most valuable skill sets to have.
And it's weird because you look at all the champions now, they're all strikers pretty much. A lot of the divisions, like obviously Pereira, Leon Edwards, in most of the divisions, I think there's striker. I think bar like Islam, maybe Pantoja, you could say he's got decent ground game as well. I think outside of that, it's all strikers at the minute. So it's like O'Malley as well. So striking's kind of taking precedent, man.
Yeah.
Do you see Bo Nickel coming out and then it's like, the wrestlers are taking over again.
It kind of comes in waves, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think he's kind of he's a freak athlete though, isn't he?
Yeah.
Bo Nickel. What do you think to him?
I
Have you watched him much?
I haven't watched him that much. I did actually watch him. I studied him a lot when he was only wrestling.
Yeah.
I watched him a lot as a wrestler. I haven't seen that much of him as an MMA fighter. I want to see him go against like real tough, like slugfest or war kind of thing that really pushes him and tests him, so we see what kind of Bo Nickel is there when things get hard. And I'm looking forward to seeing that kind of tough fight. I haven't watched him so much at the moment.
Yeah. Is there any like English MMA fighters who are sort of not there yet, but they're coming through that you're like, yeah, they're one to watch out for?
Well, like outside the UFC and like on the come up and loads. I'd say loads of people down at GB Top Team.
Yeah.
They're like on their way up, and it's a dangerous team of fighters because everyone is so well rounded, and because the team itself, we're all so close, so we're all helping each other. We've got guys that are amazing at wrestling, guys that are amazing at striking, coming together and sharing their knowledge between each other. And you come down to GB, any kind of weakness you have will get exposed, but then as quick as it gets exposed, just as quick, their team will help you fix it.
Yeah.
Loads of people at GB, 100%.
England's kind of like,
It's coming.
it's up right now, man. Like it's looking really good. I don't know if that's just all the skill sets of sort of like, because it's quite big in the UK now, martial arts, isn't it? So it's all like translated over.
Yeah.
Say from the past 10 years.
Yeah, with training and stuff like that. Like obviously you look at Leon Edwards, like that's not a wrestler, but he's got good wrestling, man.
Yeah. I remember like a lot of people would say the bad thing about training in England is there's no wrestling there. But now the wrestling's improving a lot.
Do you think that's down to like coaches from America coming, or is it just people learning?
A mix of everything. A lot of people, like there was a gym that opened like a year ago. One of my teammates was telling me about, that's just a pure wrestling gym. And some of the guys there are like amazing wrestlers, but they come over from like other countries, like the coaches come over from other countries. But then at the same time, it's like the coaches in the UK are seeing we're getting dominated in wrestling. We need to fix this up and learn, which is another reason I'm so fortunate to have GB Top Team and Brad, because Brad is an amazing wrestler, and having him there to teach us all like all the tricks and stuff. Of course, he spent a lot of time training it over in America as well, as massive help.
Yes, it's just everything in house again. We got a lot of questions from Instagram as well. So I'll try and avoid the ones we've already answered. The best way to level up skills, technical drilling or live rounds?
Technical drilling or live rounds?
Yeah, better to level up your skills.
Depending on the person. For me at this stage, I have like a little process. So I'll spar and I'll have certain things that I like to focus on in a certain sparring round, but I won't make it so I have to do those things. If those things come out, then I'm cool, they're good. But if I can't pull them off in sparring and I have to switch to something else, it means that I'm missing something, and that skill is not good enough to come out in a live situation. So then I'll go back and I'll drill it and practice it, figure out what's going wrong and how I can improve it. At the moment, at this stage, I do a lot more technical drilling, but I feel like that's because I'm breaking things down a lot more in terms of angles and footwork and things like that. If you're at a stage where you're not so much focused on the small details like your angle and positioning and ranges and things like that, then volume in sparring is going to be great. But if you're someone who's been sparring for years, you understand your style, you understand the basics of what's going on, then technical drilling will help a lot.
What are your plans for 2024?
2024.
I
thought it was a plane. Malnourished.
2024. I want to get my 4 fights in, and I want to set myself up for a title shot with Cage Warriors. That's all I'm focused on at the moment. I do maybe want to kind of start teaching on the side, because I've been doing little bits and pieces here and there, and I've just started like loving teaching, and maybe I'll start doing that this year. But for now, my main focus is getting towards that belt.
Opinions on knees to a grounded opponent.
Knees to a grounded opponent. Personally, the closer I can get things to a real fight, the happier I'll be. Knees to a grounded opponent, soccer kicks, whatever. I grew up from my dad, and my dad was very open about how he thinks there's too many rules and how he doesn't like that and things like that, which is why he loves watching MMA over other combat sports, is because it's the closest thing to a real fight. And that's how he trained me. So the closer it is to a real fight, the happier I'll be. So knees to a grounded opponent, why not?
Yeah, soccer kicks, man. Them soccer kicks are mad, though, innit? Like when people are down.
Yeah. And again, it kind of it will switch things a lot, because the more you change things like that, the more certain styles will shine. Because as an amateur, no knees to the head favors a lot of grapplers and wrestlers, because they shoot in and you can't throw a knee as a counter in case they like run into it. As a pro, it's a bit different. But then if you start adding knees to a grounded opponent, or like if someone's in your guard and you can throw like an up kick to the head, it changes everything.
Yeah, George Masvidal said that as well, about obviously after the Colby thing. He was like, these wrestlers are getting away with a lot more because the rule sets are catered to them.
It can be a lot of times, because it's obviously the ref will do their part of standing up if things aren't going too well, but you'll get some refs who are like, the person will just be sitting on top, they'll throw like 2 strikes, wait 10 seconds, throw 2 strikes, and to them that's enough for a fight.
Yeah.
But then you get other guys who are like Khabib and Islam, who will do things with their takedowns.
Yeah.
But then adding in those extra rules or taking away those rules can change the game a lot.
Yeah. What was the biggest barrier you had to overcome with training?
With training, I'm not too sure, because I've always aimed to be self-sufficient in everything I do. So if I'm like for example, sometimes it's tough for me to get to training because there's like train strikes or something. I live like almost 2 hours away from GB, so sometimes I can't like make it there if there's train strikes. So I'll always be like, okay, no point getting down about it. I'll train at home. I'll train somewhere close. In terms of barriers, I'd just say finding enough places to train.
Yeah. Your man's been under bridges, man. So he's gonna get it wherever.
Do you have any pre-fight superstitions?
No.
None.
No. I'm just as simple as it comes. It's fight day. I'm like, I always get asked how you feeling, and like, do you feel? That's an annoying one. Do you feel ready?
Yeah.
Obviously, I hope so.
If you don't, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, exactly that. But I'm always just of the mind of that, like, it's fight day. I'm going to go fight. I'm going to win. I'm going to lose. Afterwards, I'll move on to the next.
How are you able to improve so quickly between fights?
Studying, I'd say, is a big part of it. Studying other fighters, but then also studying yourself. I always break it down as physically, technically, tactically, and mentally are the key things that you have to look out for when you're looking at someone else and yourself. So I'll look back at my fight. Was my technique good? Was I loading up on shots? Was I telegraphing anything? my tactics and my planning, were they good pre-fight? And was my adaptations good? Did I adapt my tactics well in the fight? How was my strength? How was my cardio? What was my mindset like coming into that fight? Breaking everything down like that, looking at where you're weakest and then building from there. I feel like that's what I'd attribute it to. Studying people, but most importantly, studying yourself.
Yeah.
This is like a proper job. Like you're doing, like a job. Like you said, I don't think people do it enough. They feel like they just probably get it done and they just go home and it's like, that's it. That's the surface level.
I get the rest of my day to myself now.
Yeah.
It's
but the graph don't stop.
Yeah. A lot of time it's like they'll train hard, they'll come home, they'll maybe watch a couple fights here and there, maybe they'll do a session in the evening and then that's it. But for me, it's kind of
you want to be great.
A process. Yeah,
that's the difference. I think that's the bar. There's a big difference.
I want to give it everything I have, but then one of the key things I've learned is there's a time to pull back. It's like if I need to take for whatever reason, maybe I'm just completely burnt out and I'm like, I just stressed or whatever, and I need to take 4 days off of training, not watch a single fight, I'll do exactly that. Always gonna come back feeling recovered and better. Everyone, that's the other weird thing.
You're a smart guy, man. Shit. It's smart, isn't it? Like, you know what I mean?
The thing is, I've spoken to so many people about it and they'll always say the same thing. I train hard, I'm feeling sore and tired. I take 2-3 days off, I come back, I feel amazing, I feel sharp. And I'm like, cool, why don't you do that more often then?
Yeah.
They're like, because I need to train. Yeah. It's like,
it's like we overcomplicate things sometimes.
Exactly.
When it's like you said, it's really simple.
Yeah.
But we just got tendencies to overcomplicate it. And then next thing you know, you just keep thinking, oh no, I need to do this.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
And I'll always learn from everywhere. So, of course, fighting is one of the furthest things from bodybuilding. But I learned from bodybuilders that they train themselves to exhaustion and then they recover. And then they train again and then they recover. Whereas a lot of fighters will train, they'll get injured, they'll keep training, they'll be tired, they'll keep training. And then they wonder why they got bad knees and the bad back and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to keep like longevity as good as I can.
Yeah, that's brilliant. This has been brilliant as well. We got 2 more questions. We ask these questions to everyone who comes on. So when it's all said and done for you, how does Shaun Fraser want to be remembered? It will say in life.
In life, someone who inspired people to just go for it. And someone who people can look to and say, that person did it, coming from there, I can do it too, type thing. And another thing is there's always more to do as well. There's always more to do. If you think you're doing enough, there's always something to learn. There's always something to practice. There's always something to train. And finally, there's someone who had a very balanced life. They trained hard, they were disciplined, but they enjoyed themselves as well. They weren't miserable every day. They were always happy type thing.
That's brilliant, man. And the final question, your most euphoric moment in life so far. So a moment that sticks out for you. You can remember it vivid. It puts hairs on your chest when you think about it. We'll say within fighting.
I'd say after that last fight, it was for sure my favorite fight. Even straight away afterwards, I'd say, like, my coach would say, you had a tough fight. And I was like, yeah, I loved it. And he was like, no one would love a fight like that. Everyone wants to just get in and get out. But for me, those kind of fights is like what Izzy said, he likes to have iconic moments. And I feel like for my first fight in my life personally, that was kind of like an iconic moment. To come through that, to win, and then to just let it all out at the end of the fight. Just, I watch back my fights to study, but that's the only fight of mine I watch back to be like, wow, that was a great moment.
Yeah.
That was a great moment.
And to finish how you did as well.
Yeah. My favourite fight for sure of mine.
That's brilliant, man. Shaun, thank you for coming on, man. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, man.
It's been brilliant, man. I can't wait to watch what you go on to do in
Yeah.
your career as well, because I feel like I'm getting that feeling that, man, we're going to be looking at a Cage Warriors number champ soon.
I appreciate it.
Is there anything you got coming up, or any announcements, or anything you want to say to anyone before we sort of wrap it up?
Nothing confirmed yet at the moment. I'm just biding my time, ticking over, training, improving. But all we've got at the moment is potentially March 30th, London. Well, second time's a charm.
Yeah, keep your eyes peeled, man. That one's going to be a big one.
Yeah.
People, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you go and follow Shaun. I'll link all your stuff down below. Make sure you keep watching his career, man, because I think
special.
I think there's a
one.
special fighter coming through, man.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching, and peace, people.